Welcome. We are TableGoth, a group of tabletop gaming enthusiasts and Gothic aficionados. We are here to review Fall of London, the chronicle book that Modiphius put out. This will be a in-depth, chapter-by-chapter, extremely spoiler-filled review. So if you plan on playing this, don't watch this. We'll have another review that covers more of the basics. This is more for people who just want to know all the deets, or maybe a storyteller who wants to see how professionals handled it and what our opinions on it were. So, we've covered all the basics of the other one, so this we're just going to sort of go, like I said, just go chronologically through. I'll talk about what the book says, what the book had suggested to do. We'll talk about what we actually did. You'll see some of the ingenious things I added, and some of the stuff we kept. So, let's just get through this. We just finished, we did this in 9 sessions, which is good. Really good.
Thanks.
Good to everyone. The book itself is technically 6 chapters.
Oh, we didn't do a good job.
No, we did good. It could have been longer. We did perfect. So, starting off, the book kicks things off with sort of the background of Mithras, which you guys didn't know. So, if you're wanting to know, oh, do my players need to like know about Mithras, know about all the lore? They don't, because they didn't know anything. And I'll be honest, before this, I didn't know anything either. But I read it and I learned, and it didn't matter.
Well, okay.
No, it mattered. It's cool to have like the background of what happened, but as characters, they're not really going to know, and you could sort of fill in the pieces as it happens. And some of the other NPCs will have this information they could share if that conversation comes up. Otherwise, this takes place in London 2012. So a little bit in the past. And people who know like the vampire lore know like the Second Inquisition. It's kind of winning. They're like this all-encompassing threat, this existential problem for kindred everywhere. So this is sort of one of the first. Vienna already fell. That was sort of one of the first big things that happened. The Tremere fell, and this is London being one of the Camarilla, well, not the Camarilla, Mithras' things. No, it was Camarilla at this time. This is Fall of London. So this is sort of where the antigen, as they're called here, this is before the Second Inquisition. The operation to kill all the vampires is called Operation Antigen. So that's sort of what they're called in this. And I felt like this was sort of more of this background thing, looming and ramping up rather than something. You guys didn't really have to like directly deal with them a whole lot.
Okay. Yeah.
A few times.
I win a torpor thanks to them, but
No, you deserved it.
Well,
We second that.
I ain't gonna fight that one.
So yeah, the beginning, as a storyteller, sort of lists out what's happening in London in 2012, gives you a brief introduction of some of what the clans are doing, hot spots that you probably won't use, but if you want to really like dive into the setting, they're there. A list of some major kindred that also, a lot of them aren't used. The NPCs you'll actually use are more in their chapters. But so it works a little bit like a source book. If someone just wanted to run a game in London, gives you a lot to work with there. But for this actual chronicle, sort of more mission focused rather than like let you guys loose and let you play politics with all these NPCs. But if they wanted to, it sets you up for it. Does a deep dive into Operation Antigen. I like some of the different words they use too. Like I like that this is Operation Antigen, not necessarily like Second Inquisition. They call them, I think I used it a few times, like IC nulls or IC zeros.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then
Instead of like,
one, yeah,
and like later they're called like blanks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's sort of some of the early hunter terminology. Let's see. They even like actually really set out some of the antigen NPCs. You guys didn't really have to fight any of the top dogs in it, so it didn't come into play. But they're there, including the guy that's like what is he? Ishak Khan, the detective inspector. So the dude like running Operation Antigen is someone with something called True Faith, which you guys probably don't know because you're new to Vampire, but old school people know True Faith is essentially someone who is such a belief in their god that actually gives them powers against kindred and makes them like super strong and stuff. So there's a person in this who has that if you were to really like go for the top dog in Antigen.
That's interesting.
They also give some cool anti-vampire equipment, which doesn't really get used against you. You got flashbanged ones, I think. They have this cool like coagulant stuff that they can inject vampires with that like messes with your blood, so you can't use your powers. Like you can't like use a discipline without making like some sort of check.
Fuck.
But like I said, you guys avoided. You guys mostly just got shot when you ran into them. Antigens also ran as a threat level system. So as you guys went, which I used a little bit, I just wasn't explicit about it. There's a 1 through 5 threat level. So if you were to continue like breaking the Masquerade, that threat level, it goes with the story where each chapter is going to go up by 1, but say in one chapter you guys just really were breaking the Masquerade and stuff, you can accelerate that. And with the threat level going up, it's going to feel a little more oppressive. Like Antigen's presence is going to feel more known.
Was there ever a time you did accelerate it?
Once at the very beginning, when you did the thing with Valerius.
Yeah.
Remember you guys?
You mentioned like dealing with the Masquerade a little bit, but it was not like overt that you were saying.
That was
but I got
pretty
the
messy.
feeling.
And remember, the people with their phones out, and you like
Yeah,
you stole a car and
live
threw that
stream.
door
Yeah,
in there.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that was pretty rough.
I accelerated a little bit there, but then for the rest of it, you guys were pretty
Avoided
good
them,
about
yeah.
keeping the Masquerade.
Sneaky snakes.
I thought I would have had it because I just started a cult and
You did, but that was for you specifically,
that's kind of
more
what I
so than
figured
like
was it wouldn't have affected all
Yeah.
of us, but
yeah. We'll get into that. You broke some Masquerades for sure. But yeah, so that's sort of the basis, the preliminary chapters. Then we could get into what these guys experienced, which was chapter 1, which was Dark and Stormy Night. That's when you woke up in the warehouse. You met Darius, and the agents attacked. How'd you guys feel about the beginning, like the intro to it? I know there's always that sort of, especially with pre-gens, you're sort of feeling out the character a little more than a character you made yourself, because you have more of an idea. A big part of it, I think, was the feeding scene. It's kind of cool to like bring out the different types and like you guys decide how you're gonna feed, if you're gonna feed, how you react to mortals.
I didn't really get Tommy until I ripped that dude's throat out. So yeah, I mean, that kind of really gelled in with me.
Yeah.
Really well.
Pez dispenser.
Yeah, it's Pez dispenser.
Oh, when
That's
the
what-
agents attacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
That's
good.
like the moment, you kind of really get the feel for a
Oh,
character and you kind of
Useless that scene.
understand him at a base level.
Yeah, no, it took a little bit to get into. I don't think I found like Dr. Henry until like 2 or 3 episodes in.
I think when you
Whenever I
realize-
met Winston, I'm like, oh, this is Dr. Henry.
Yeah.
It
But-
sort of makes sense too for your characters because
Yeah.
they literally don't have memories. They're
Yeah,
just
they're
woken up and like so much stuff happens. It's heavy. I like that as a beginning pace though.
Yeah.
It's like you're just sort of thrown into it. You have to react. You have to figure out what your character would do.
And it's super suspect. Like, do we trust these people that just, awakened us? But like, it's more fun to dive into. Like, yeah, let's see where this goes.
I mean, how much did you know about Henry? Like, not much?
Not a lot.
Because I feel like we found you had the most revelations about your character, for sure. Like, I don't know, we can get into it when they
Yeah.
happen, but
I'll
Yeah.
let
there's a
her.
lot of
I think
things
she
where,
had a lot
like,
of revelations though too.
yours are way different.
They were worse.
way worse. Yeah.
Yeah, worse.
They really
Worse,
revealed
yeah.
what kind of character you were. But yeah, let's keep going. Yeah.
So yeah, takes you through that. You get woken. You get just sort of the info dump of hey, your heralds get Mithras. I gave you the letter, which I think is a useful thing to do as a storyteller. So you have like the paper with like the items you need and who has them to keep track of. Wow, look at that.
I didn't realize we had that.
Yeah.
What's all those scribbles?
Oh my
Could've
God.
stopped
They're
taking
my
notes.
little notes.
Yeah.
And then you're thrown into combat, which most of the pre-gens, so there's 5 pre-gens. We obviously just had 4 of the 5. The one we didn't use is a Bruja, so probably the other combat-orientated character. So we really just had Tommy or Nosferatu as our combat character. So
And fight he did.
yes, he did.
Even
Well, at
when
the
we told
very
not to,
first
he
scene,
did.
didn't you spit in someone's mouth
Yeah,
with scorpion blood?
I did a
and-
scorpion blood, yeah.
So we got
I
right
did the
into it.
ritual. That was
Scorpion
cool.
I was
blood,
just trying to
Spencer
talk her
Spencer.
way out of
Yeah,
it.
you mesmerized,
Very
and
nearly
I
had
ran.
it, and then
It was.
Yeah.
wham bam.
I
Oh yeah,
kinda-
no, the situation was under control and fine.
And then you
When
went
Tommy
in,
wanted one of those guns.
got in the sewers,
We got
escaped, sent you, and then met up with Darius again. And that's when. So I sort of made up. The Moon Palace isn't in the book. That's something. They give you examples of like you could try to set up like you could sleep here or here, but I think it's less interesting for you guys to figure out like okay, where do we sleep? How do we get around? those are sort of things I just wanted to give you because that's
with this group we would be bickering for about an hour.
It's less important to the actual
it didn't feel like a big deal.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that like it says that Darius like gives you money and stuff. It makes sense like they would probably just set you up with like here's the hotel to go to.
Yeah.
So I just sort of made up the Moon Palace as at least a starting haven, just so we didn't have to figure that out with everything else going on. And Jimmy the driver, also someone I just made up.
That was
Really?
awesome.
Yeah, Jimmy's not a character.
Super clutch.
Because again, it's a thing of like, there's a bit of it, we sort of ignored a part of it, but again, I just didn't think it's super, I think that could be cool for a different chronicle, but the whole that, you've been in Torpor for 70 years, so the world's super different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, even like getting around is going to be all weird and stuff, but I'm like, it also makes sense that they just have like, I like that idea, just a Nosferatu driver, just on retainer, he's part of the Mithridatic cult, he's just on call for you, because who wants to figure out how to get around?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
that'd be fun for a different chronicle, like Captain America learning how the world works again.
So I just sort of gave him a little bit of personality, and you can interact with him or not. Just as an easy, I wanted you to have certain things that we didn't have to figure out, because there's so much other things that were more interesting, I thought. Yeah, and that's essentially the opening. It's just, it ends at you guys getting away from the warehouse, which worked. But it works as to like show them that, hey, there's humans hunting them right off the bat.
Yeah.
Humans are a problem, which probably wasn't a thing when you first went to Torpor. I think it's a good setting for the mood. And you get like this very official letter mission. So it's obvious what you need to do. Chapter 2 is Sunset of Flames. That's when the Elysium, the Queen Anne, and all of that. So technically, all of the following chapters can be played in any order. We played them in the order of the book. It definitely works out better that way, especially if you were to switch any of them, this is the one I wanted. Because I think Elysium makes such a good opening with that. I sort of worked in the tie-in with Catherine knowing Scarlet, and just an easy, like, here's a phone number, call them, go to Elysium type thing, instead of having to, like, figure out
how to get there.
Yeah. I added a few of the details with the Astrid Trevelli rivalry, which I thought was sort of just a neat thing to work with, that you fought over the fashion designer. And that's when you sort of learn what type of person you were a little bit. And Elysium. And that, I think that was the one time we sort of, and it was fun, and I think that was enough to where we did the, it's been 70 years, when you had $1,000. And inflation's so crazy that you're like, we're rich. And you can't even buy like one super high-end dress with that.
I think it was also important for like me as a player, because I don't have confidence in my character abilities or like my abilities, honestly, as a player.
Yeah.
And so it was a good, it's a problem all the time. So it was good for me to be able to see like the extent of my abilities, especially on humans. And even though they're not like super crazy strong, they're still strong. So like being able to learn the mechanics of my character in order to get a story like line going was super important to me as a player. So I think, as like a storyteller, I'm sure that's a good way to get people comfortable with playing characters, especially ones they don't know very well, but they just have dots on a page, and like figure out how to play your character and then make your character around.
And then we had the whole, so it's a thing of like, it depending on how you interact, like if you have a good interact with Scarlet, she'll let you know, hey, bring a gift. I made up the gift to like bring an agent, because I'm like, that's something kind of challenging, something that might just be like too risky.
Which is also a big like confidence boost to
worked
like,
out well that
how I can manipulate situations. Like I can't do jack shit in combat, but
big payoff.
Yeah.
But
Seeing Scarlet choke up when you waltzed in with.
I learned early on how to play the politics of the game and also play like a character.
Yeah.
With powers like that.
So with that, we had Elysium, which is a cool way where I think you were recognized, I think, a little bit by some people. And then you all sort of had your offshoots. You had the thing with Adisa with like potentially frenzying, you calmed her down. You got to deal with the feuding, the domain dispute.
That was really cool too. I enjoyed
stuff like
part.
that. They had another thing you could do where people are like embellishing stories and you decide who's telling the truth. But you got to a point where like there's enough little side things Elysium. I felt like you interacted, you got a feel for it. And then you meet the Queen. And that's when we have our first memoriam. And all the way through, that's when we ended our first session. So in one session, we got through like the whole intro, feeling out Elysium, and then like the Queen Anne thing. So I thought it was a good spot for that. The Memoriam I thought went really well. You guys played it very seriously in the sense that like you're using willpower and stuff
we used all the
in a
willpower.
flashback essentially,
Yeah.
which is cool. And I think you have to sort of take this Memoriam seriously to get anything out of them. This was a very interactive one where you each had to do like, what do you bring to the table? And I like that. I don't know. What did you guys feel about the Memoriam? What did you figure out what it was? What did you think like? Because there was already some details like when he referred to it as adventure. I'm like, we're not
Yeah, that
running
was-
through.
So I think I get that we were like seeing Valerius's memory, but I don't understand like where the memory ends and like where us interacting begins, and like how it detailed that in the book. Like, because you put up like specific skill challenges that kind of made sense for like each of our characters, but Valerius clearly probably wasn't good at all of those things. I mean, I wouldn't think he would be, but I wasn't sure if that was like a thing that was already in the book or.
I think it was. Valerius is very old. Valerius is very powerful. So I think it was, but also it doesn't necessarily matter. So it's something to where like, because it's not a true flashback, it's like a weird fragmented shared memory. If things worked out differently in your flashback than how they worked in reality, that doesn't, it's not like I had to keep you true to what happened.
Right.
As long as the end result sort of works its way out, it's fine. Because again, this wasn't a flashback. This was like you guys have fragments, but you also have your real memories. So you like sort of put
And
yourself
also-
in like.
In that situation.
Yeah.
So it's cool to like you pick up on a few things like this isn't quite right, and like some of you knew like I wasn't around, but some of you could have been around. So it was I like everyone took it seriously. Everyone did their thing, and you guys killed the challenges, so it worked out well.
I was able to like flex our muscles a bit.
Yeah.
Really get into character.
There's some good moments in that one.
And sort of an intro to Valerius, who you otherwise don't meet unless it's like to fight. So it's sort of a thing where you learn who this person is a little bit, you learn Queen Anne is a little bit, because you don't have time to like meet and learn who Queen Anne
Yeah.
is. So these flashbacks are sort of cool to show who they were, how they got to who they are now. Then the Valerius mission, where you were told to kill an elder. A few things happen with that. So in the book, they have the Jack and Diane, the two ghouls who work for Mithras, but obviously they want Valerius dead. You guys want Valerius dead, but you think they're working. So it's sort of that
Yeah.
confusing, which worked out as messily as it probably should.
Oh yeah, when I fucked up, we're like, what did I say? King James for.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you didn't realize it was a code.
Yeah, I was like, and they shut the door on me.
So that was sort of worked in your favor a little bit.
Yeah, fucking up.
Yeah.
Failing up.
And then
I
you
like
set up a solid ambush. Like I said, there's no really way for you guys to kill an elder unless it's like starting by blowing them up
Yeah.
and then finishing them off.
And still, he was fucking.
What do you mean?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, still taking hits like a fucking boss.
And you tried talking. Some of you tried listening a little bit, but that was a cool thing too. Of it's the first part where you're like, "Oh, I have things to tell you about what's really going on," and then you have to sort of decide. Nah, I'm just in this Mithras thing. You're just like,
Yeah.
I don't really know what's going on. Maybe I should hear him out. We had our stutter step, but they didn't kill him.
Is that all part of the same chapter as Elysium?
Yeah.
In the book? Yeah.
But yeah, so they have a whole thing where you don't have to kill him, obviously.
Yeah.
And he'll still like give you the ring or give you a thing saying, "Hey, just show her this, tell her you killed me," and he just fucks off. So like it's possible, or you can even get him to like work with you secretly, where you to pretend he's dead and whatnot.
But he really betrayed Mithras, right?
Yeah, fuck him. Praise Mithras.
Yeah, fuck him then, right?
And there's a thing where even he knows where Queen Anne kept her seal. So it's even a thing where you don't necessarily have to go back to Queen Anne. He could tell you the address where that vault was and be like, "Okay, here's our vault." And
That would save
go
some
steal
gunfire.
yeah. But
I
took
cut
him
his
out.
head off and it felt good.
Yeah.
That was you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You went back to Elysium, and then we had the whole another antigen attack, which is another quite. I like that they just ramp up at the beginning. That's why I think this chapter really should be at the beginning to really feel like, okay, antigen's a
Put the
problem.
pressure on you.
Yeah.
Scarlett keeps going to like her iPad and her like something's fucking up right now.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, and that's when we had our first sort of forced like combat-ish to where like that you have to either. And that's also a thing where depending how Elysium went, if you connect with some of the NPCs, like, oh, should we go help them? But also it's like it's kind of a suicide, so staying there. And also being on Queen Anne's good side helps you to where she told you like, yeah, use this elevator in a few rounds.
But it's also like another really good point where you question Queen Anne.
Oh,
like
yeah.
she has this whole fucking Elysium where she's supposed to be keeping her people safe. And then she lies to them about antigen coming, like literally just fucks them over.
Oh yeah, she's like a helicopter's here.
Yeah,
right?
she's like makes an announcement, and so everyone's
Just to keep
chilling
calm.
out.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And then
it could be seen either way too. Is where she's like, we're under attack. It could just be fucking pandemonium.
Yeah.
So she was more like, we're fucked. I'm getting out at least. So it wasn't a thing where like she set them up. Like,
Yeah.
she didn't.
But I feel
Right.
like
But
she
definitely paints hers out
completely
for herself.
Yeah, sets them up for failure. Yeah.
But you guys were on her good side, so it worked. Sort of worked out nicely with that. And then the vault thing, thought those are cool. I think they don't have your guys' stuff in the vault. I sort of added where to force a couple more memoriams, where you had like your items, like your book was there, your bag was there. They might be. But that whole thing, they do have like antigen potentially being there, but it's also a very long night as far as things happening.
Yeah.
They fill in a lot. So I thought it made more sense just to have them there in like the morning, because the attack would take, that's a lot of cleanup to do, and then them check out her other places. And I also liked Lady Scarlet having to help you, so it sort of set them up as Queen Anne is a potential ally, where you see she's looking out for you, she sent someone to make sure you got out. But also in the sense that now you start feeling like maybe you owe her a little bit, you wanted to make that feeling happen.
Fucking favors.
And it helped. I really liked the Catherine Scarlet tension. Thought that worked out well. Then we had sort of my reckoning with the past chapter. So even a later chapter they have where like, okay, have them all feed as the predator type. That actually leads into the underground stuff. But I'm like, that seems a long time to wait to like feel out your character. And I'm like, this is so I took those and made them early.
Especially with how trigger happy we are, we need to feed pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought it'd be cool to like force you to play out your predator type, and that's when we also got into sort of background stuff. So when did we start with that? That's when you met with like the fashion designer lady. And what was interesting in this is all the NPCs that are the most fleshed out were probably the least fleshed out in the book. Like your stuff with the fashion designer, there's nothing about her. It's just that she's a fashion designer. That's it. But it made sense for you to have like an elevated haven, like a nicer one, and have your own, sort of to make you feel like the venture you're supposed to be. And also, it does say like you have finances with her.
Right.
We got your flirting with the hotel lady, which...
Ooh. Can we play that on Twitch?
No.
Yeah, I get it. Take it down.
Oh, when you oh man, I took notes that session.
We all took
That
notes.
was good.
And then I think you met Algernon that session too.
I don't know if it was that session.
No, it was
We
the
ended the
next
session
session.
on
It was
it.
the next session because
Yeah.
I remember her yelling at me because I said Algernon had good technique, and she's like, "Last session you said
Yeah.
I did."
So
We'll
it was
get
a
to
past thing. And that's when Henry did the hospital thing. You
And
met
we got
Winston.
Winston.
Yeah, Winston.
Dr. Winston.
Yeah, and Winston also is literally there as like, hey, he is a ghoul, Winston. That's all it says. So Winston was all just pretty much made up. And I like the dynamic because of how like creepy and messed up. I just like an enthusiastic, like seemingly nice, but his actions
It
are
was a great
very
dynamic.
Comedic relief.
Yeah.
Kind
Very
of,
dark
kind
Yeah,
of.
situation.
very dark way, humor way, but
Everything.
he was my Igor to my Dr. Frankenstein.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I loved playing Winston, and that worked out well. And then they also have the gangrel.
I fucking hate that guy.
So that's also when we introduced, like, hey, you have this escape thing on the loose.
yeah.
But you weren't worried about it, so it was fine.
Hey,
How
man,
much details? In
all
the
panned
game?
out,
That's
right?
all it says.
It is a gangrel out to get him.
Yeah, just as a gangrel to get him.
So did you make him American?
Yeah.
American Gangrel in London?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Then we had things when you met with Darius. And we had like the flashback with the
Yeah,
book.
to my mom.
Then you started your cult and gave a great speech.
That was
Thank
dope.
you.
And
Oh, that
that's
was
when
a
you
good
also broke the Masquerade and attracted Antigen's attention.
Doesn't matter.
Where I think we both knew you rolled really bad. We're like, all right, we'll see this
Yeah,
again.
I got it.
But that speech,
No, it was that was a fun thing. The Osiris
Mm-hmm.
Predator type is really cool. I don't think it's anything that I ever would have picked to play because it seems hard.
Yeah.
It seems hard because you have to figure out how do
Maintain
I
the
maintain
following.
the following. How do I maintain the Masquerade? Like, it's a lot of work to put in, and it was probably my favorite part about playing this was getting to try to balance the dynamic there. Was really cool.
Yeah, obviously it doesn't really flesh any of that out. It was cool you picked like homeless people, you had a good speech for them, and also once you broke the mask, I think it was like just a bad roll. Wasn't it just like a bestial failure or something that happened?
It was like a beat in
and then you're just like, yeah, okay, no, we're not worrying. They know I'm a vampire now. You just went all in.
Yeah.
I feel like once they know, they know.
Well, and it was also fun to play a character who, as like ragamuffin-ish she is,
rabble-rouser, yeah.
believes that she deserves a following. Like, that's a very fun thing to play.
Yeah. And it makes sense, because I just gave them all their character sheets, so it's pretty minimal information.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think you might have just learned from a memoriam that you were like a homeless person. Does it say you were homeless?
Your hands are calloused and leathery. They're no stranger to hard work. So it's like, you had to do, So it implies, like, you lived outside, you're not a stranger to hard work, you had to do bad things.
So not necessarily the whole. That's what I like, too, is every time you guys, like, got information, like, I like saying, like, okay, let's incorporate that to my character a little bit. Like, okay, I'm a soldier. Okay, I was a homeless. Let me seek out. I opened up cats.
I didn't write the character. I just embraced the character.
Yeah, so what was the first signs that you were a serial killer?
Probably
when you fed and just destroyed that person's neck.
My conviction is people are just like clockwork, intricate, fascinating, and easy to take apart. Never miss a chance to study them. So I was like, I think that's what it is. And then I had memories with Winston and stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I think I was a
bad guy.
Yeah, so it must have been when you first met Winston, the first time we like did a callback memory to like him being a weirdo.
It's when I saw the hospital. That's when I'm like, oh, this was my old hospital. I was a doctor. I used to test things, and then I found out I used to test on a gangrel, and that one got out.
Yeah. Then we had Tommy, get into your bar fight, met your war vets, and that's when we introduced Calico. Who, the same thing, was, Calico was her name in there, it just says you killed her sire, and she's mad at you.
Damn.
So I ran with that. Yeah, the whole thing with you being an executioner, that's not actually Tommy. It's kind of just a basic, like, he's just a very dutiful soldier. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's more interesting to give something specific.
Yeah.
So I like the idea, and a big part of it was you during the memoriam. You like got that sword out and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's sort of a cool, like, I could work this into, like, makes sense. And I was just a soldier. He was the executioner.
Yeah.
So here's an important piece of being a very good role player is always forcing the DM into your archetypes. Mm-hmm. So I always find a way to get a sword. And you never have to worry about it.
So far, you got me.
There's probably a sword here, right?
And think about all the D&D tech games we play together. How often do I have a sword? Pretty often.
You choose Paladin every time.
You have a sword in D&D? That's not conventional, dude.
Yeah, I know, right?
But yeah, that was our sort of, that wasn't an actual chapter, but that was just, I sort of had the feeding thing early because we had a shit ton of action. I wanted to give you a little breathing space. Like, okay, what do you do when you don't have this pressing thing to do?
Explore the character too. Mm-hmm. And like make your own character because like we've said, like you have so little to go on. A lot of it's just like what you're wanting to put into it. Like you have some groundwork, but like you have to put the frame around it, you know.
Yeah.
So that's a cool thing. Like none of our characters are gonna be the same as the way you play the exact same character,
Right.
and that's what's really cool.
Then we went into Chapter 3, Family Affairs. This was the closest one you guys almost didn't do in order, because you almost went to the Nosferatu stuff instead of the Street Sansa stuff. These two, I think, are a little more interchangeable, but because there was so much action, I think I tried swaying you towards this by making it easier to find him, because if you don't went from fighting Antigen, fighting Valerius, fighting Antigen, fighting the Nosferatu in the underground, it would have just, So it felt like this was a relatively action-free or combat-free chapter, so we did that.
Until some bestial fells came out.
This chapter is also, I realized, the hardest, like how it's written, it really expects you to just on your own explore this town of Southall, which is outside London, sort of a Punjabi, Indian. They have a lot of really cool details in the book about like really specific like neighborhood details, restaurant details, and stuff like that. But there's really no in-game incentive to like, why would you just walk around and
like browse the
check
area.
it out?
Yeah.
So like for the thing with like the Thin Bloods, where you saw them feeding and the person like it just says, hey, if they go to this district, that's happening. So I made it to where like that thing happened. They literally ran in front of your taxi, so like you witnessed it.
Right.
But
That's a good pull.
yeah, that worked out well and that's also where the thin bloods are. So you sort of have to force, because otherwise you can easily skip like just 5 and 3 and do that.
Right.
So I do have a question. I rolled an insight check to see if he was the kind of guy who'd be easily bullied. Did I fail that check?
Which guy?
Shri. Sansa.
Because we did bully him a bit.
Well, I was gonna bully him, but then I did an insight check to see if he was bullyable.
Oh no, he's pretty level. Yeah, no.
He just started
okay.
frenzying at the
'Cause I
end.
thought I rolled pretty well, and then I was like, by
No,
the end of it,
no.
I was like, maybe I could have bullied that
No,
guy.
no, he really, and also he's very strong.
Oh yeah.
Like all the people who like had items were like would have outclassed any of you. So he just wasn't like, he just cared about his family. He just wasn't the type to like bully you back. But bullying him, like if you tried pushing him around, he knows like that's not gonna work. But he's not the type to like Queen Anne or like the Richard the Ward who's gonna like flex back on you.
Yeah.
He's just gonna move on because he doesn't want to deal with any of this stuff.
Yeah. I think that one ended pretty well then, because that ended with like me basically protecting his family from
It did work out well.
Yeah.
So there's the thing
Which I
with
think
that
kind
in
of
the
wraps
Three
it
really
Bridges
well.
neighborhood.
Family. Because
There was, like, a
that could have
servant
been
family
something,
within,
right?
Yeah, there's
Ish.
seems like there's a lot more going on.
So we
there,
went
but-
from that, then they do where you can see him at the library. So that's when they try to make you explore. So like you could find out he's holding a seance at the library in like a few days. But why wouldn't you just go back to London? Because it's
Right.
only like 40 minutes outside the city. So in my mind, I'm like, if the thing is, oh, he's here in a few days, we're just gonna go back to where their haven is and come back that day
Yeah.
instead of let's find a place in Southall. So, but yeah, the thing with the library, you get to see that he's a little bit of a fraud. He's sort of that mix of like, he's definitely playing it up, but he also is like an actual spiritual person.
Yeah.
Like his words make sense, but you could tell he's just plagiarizing a little bit of the best of everything.
I liked when I caught him with I did an occult roll.
Yeah.
And I caught him in that. And then in his memoriam was my favorite one we did
The seance, yeah.
with the seance. Because it was the same thing where I like that Alice would not call you on it because she's probably pulled the same shit like before to get somebody,
Which was good because that whole thing, like if you spoil that for them, because it's one of those things where I think a lot of them know it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But they're like, they're there to have fun. It's like going to a haunted house with people and being like, it's not real. It's like,
It's
yeah,
an
you know
actor.
shit, dude. Like, we're here to have fun and be
Aesthetic,
scared.
man.
So it's, there was a thing that like, they give you the opportunity to like, oh, you know it's fake. If you call it out, everyone's going to kind of turn on you.
Yeah.
Instead of, you would think, oh, maybe they'll turn on him for being fake. Yeah, there's that. There's a library thing. They expect him to like escape the library, which I can't fathom a way that 4 or 5 kindred aren't going to just push through a crowd and like grab him. Because their thing is like you follow him back to his house then, and that's when you meet his family, where they're all getting ready to move, and you sort of see the chaos, and you see him sort of, the stress he's under trying to keep this huge family happy and safe.
Yeah.
So we kind of, I brought that back in the end, but it just made sense for once you got him, just to like, because I'm like, he meets with you anyway, so I'm not going to have him like pull out all of his powers to get away from you.
Right.
I'm like, so you just met at the restaurant essentially. Yeah, and then you had another memorial, which started with our like walking through the street thing. We had like the little pickpocket girl. We had the prostitute getting harassed, or the carriage crash, which Catherine thought was some conspiracy that I don't know what. We're so adamant of like what really happened. He's like, I crashed my carriage.
And then me feeling my medicine checked in to help. Like, you can bring him back. I'm like, no, I can't.
I committed.
You did commit. You were like sure you had found like what really happened.
Oh, well,
here.
carriage just falls apart like that.
Yeah, you're telling your horses crap.
No,
You
it's
would
more
not
just,
let
like,
them go.
There seems to be like always something more in each memoriam.
No, you're right.
And so, like, she's gonna push it. And she's the only one that ever feels like, this is not right. Like, everyone's tricking us. Mithras might not be all he says. There's all these
Hang
things. And she
on.
doesn't
Get him,
keep.
get him.
That sounds
She's
like
a
she's
skeptic.
metagaming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
She's
what
a
that sounds
skeptic.
like.
Yeah.
Metagaming.
No,
Look up.
Meta Mandy. I'm sorry.
Then I also like that that's when you really start to feel that something's messed up to where like you're following him, but every time something happens, he just like stops.
Yeah.
And, like he waits for you,
Yeah.
even though he doesn't really notice you,
Like
type
a
of
weird
thing.
video game, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you want,
The
and you get
NPC
caught
waits.
fighting, and then
Yeah.
it goes on. It's so
And then the sand. I thought the sand was cool. It's just a
Sand's
cool,
awesome.
like, another interactive. They pull a lot of, like, NPCs. So I don't think I made up any characters there. Were like,
Sir Arthur.
Conan Doyle. Yeah,
he was in the book.
He's,
John Dee.
yeah, he's really there. Abraham Mellon,
Yeah.
who pretended to be John Dee. Like, he's
That's
really
cool.
there, and he really worked for Mithras.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit.
The
we
whole.
were right.
What else was?
the one lady.
Yeah, there's who? Victoria Ash.
Yeah.
Who's
Yes.
like the canon, like the top Tremere character or Toreador characters there. She's just there. She doesn't really do
Right.
anything else in the story. It's just a
Fan
cool.
service.
It's like an Easter egg kind
Yeah.
of. So yeah, that was cool. I liked you guys like bugging Abraham Mellon just to make him talk to you, even though he's like doesn't
He
want
hated
to.
it, and then bringing up like blood sorcery and
Yeah.
having a moment where he was kind of like
Yeah.
interested. I felt very vindicated and
Yeah.
like thank you. For
That was good. It's also a thing to where like the other characters. That's when like it says because you weren't there. They'll pretty much ignore you unless you directly interact with someone. Then they'll acknowledge you and stuff. But as soon as you stop talking to them, they just like everything's just normal. So it's sort of another cool. You saw Sri, he gave out the blood stuff, and then you learn that he's. That's the thing is I don't know how much justice I did for his character because there's a lot there of him being like he was recruited to be Mithras' like spiritual advisor. He's supposed to have the highest humanity and like help with that.
I thought you did a pretty good job.
But
with
there's
that.
just not a lot. I don't know.
So
to
that
witness.
was Tree's memoriam that we were seeing, right?
Yeah.
Because he was one of the people for the
Yeah,
binding.
that's when he was recruited into. He was already a kindred then, but that's when he was recruited. Like Abraham was there to like, hey, Mithras wants you. And he's like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And then you went to a restaurant. The Asa. That's another thing that they sort of shoehorn in there. She's in there. She's the House Karna
Yeah.
Tremere. But I'm like, so she's there, and like it says like Sri's not interested in helping her. He's a Tremere too. So it sort of helps to give you an idea for like what's going on with the Tremere, I guess. But like the only Tremere is Alice, and I think she's the most like on paper Mithras person.
Touchstones and conviction. The key to power and enlightenment is magic. The key to magic is Mithras.
Yeah.
So that is
So like I
What I
can't
was
I can't
playing.
see a coterie like being like, yeah, let's go help take down the Tremere Premier. Also, that seems like such a huge undertaking when like too much for a side quest.
Yeah.
But I mean, I kept her in there as sort of because I knew I would be bringing the Tremere in later, just to sort of put it in there.
Yeah.
And I also wanted you to have flashbacks where you knew, oh, Mithras hated the Tremere, so the Tremere were nothing here. But if there's something now, something must have happened to bring them
Yeah.
into power. With that, then Tommy went and got the ring. So that I like that, where you saw that he was like Sri was just getting so frustrated. Although I could tell you guys when it came to like, all right, tell me what you'll give me for the ring. You guys were just waiting for like, the mission.
yeah.
When it came to, there's no mission. I'm just here to bargain with you.
Yeah.
I had no idea what to.
well,
What are some examples?
Yeah.
Well, every other
Like, who
kindred,
do you need us to kill?
Yeah.
every other like our other chronicle, every other kindred we've ever encountered, like if you want something, here's the thing I need you to do for me, or here's like
Yeah.
a favor.
Owe me a
Well,
favor.
So yeah,
And-
so there's always like they already have something in mind, like
Right.
a task for you. So like.
Yeah.
It's like we literally don't have anything. We just woke up. We don't know
Yeah.
jack shit. So what do you need from us?
Yeah.
Like
Go
just tell
like
us.
this, man.
That was sort of an interesting. But then I got to work the Thin Bloods back in. I'm like, all right, he might be worried about like the Thin Bloods making this whole neighborhood messed up, and that came into play in an
Then
interesting
we
way.
just lie to him.
Yeah.
and
we don't
we-
follow
And then
their
Tommy,
plan.
which was I wasn't sure if he'd actually interfere with that, with him like finally friendsing. It's again written a little weird in the book, to where it feels like his whole thing is he's supposed to be high humanity, but if you don't get the right interactions with him, he just seems like he got pissed and killed someone in his family for
Like, he
taking
is
a ring.
Super
So I really,
anxiety,
yeah,
just
I
lost his
really
shit.
just tried to make it be like so many things were caving in where he lost it, and I wanted it, and I think it got through because Tommy stopped him. I wanted it to feel like, because some kindred, like they frenzy, they kill someone, that's
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah.
Where you could tell if he did it, he would have felt awful
And it was
about
like a servant too, right? So
It was his
someone-
niece.
It was like a
his
young
niece,
girl.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, one of Tommy's, what is it? I think his touchstone is protect those who can't protect themselves.
So that worked
like,
perfectly.
Seeing his like family about to get torn to shreds by like
Yeah.
this monstrous beast that's about to tear
So,
out
yeah.
of him.
And you calm down the other one too. And it's like a
Indecent, yeah.
yeah. It's like a
Where
ongoing
Tommy, the most
theme.
violent one, did the most to like
Yeah.
help other people. So that was cool. And a thing where at that point he's just like, take the ring. I'm just like, you could tell he's just done with it. And then we had you guys seeing Nadja spy, and then the compulsions hit. That was fun.
Yeah, that went a little wild.
So annoying.
It's so funny.
I
Tommy's
hate
just like,
playing
did what I needed to do, got everything
Yeah,
done.
you're like-
then I look over, and
Yeah.
there's people going nuts over there.
These
Like,
two
"Ah,
fighting,
man."
Henry
I'm
just
hiding in the
Yeah.
bush.
That was good. They have her as like a spy. Like that was all kind of by the book, especially where like a thing is she wanted to be embraced, and you actually did it.
Give them like characters have an option to embrace
Yeah.
her.
Which is interesting. Henry seems like one of the least likely options, so it's interesting that
Yeah,
he was the one who did it.
but I also wanted spies. So
Well,
Yeah.
also,
the least fortunate. I mean, like,
oh my
Yeah,
god.
for
being
her,
a weirdo
yeah.
like that.
I thought you were talking about my bite. My bite hurts. Like,
That too.
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
that's not good.
All around not good for her, but
Not
it turned
good
out
for
great.
her.
She became a kindred.
Being Kindred,
Awesome.
she helped. So
I just like the idea of Henry being like,
A dad.
but like experimenting, like
you.
can Thin Blood become actually kindred?
Yeah.
Like the idea of you doing it from like that angle.
The scientific.
Yeah,
perspective.
Yeah, it's an
I- I-
experiment.
That they're
Yeah.
all like about alchemy and stuff like that. Really like
That too.
Perhaps.
Yeah. So they have a lot more
Winston?
Southall things. They like completely flesh out some just like a fast food place. Like it was all really as
You
a
missed the fast food place.
it was cool reading about just like the neighborhood
That-
and this
that's
cool like little India. But I'm like, there's just no reason to do any of
If
these
we had,
things.
yeah.
Full campaign stuff.
That's
Almost.
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
But it's weird the things that they flesh out, like the stuff that you wouldn't. They like.
This whole book was like that. There's certain NPCs that have like pages of story that you don't like.
They must have
One
had,
is
like, a
only
good writer
exists
on
in a
that section. Yeah.
flashback. So like even if like you learn all the stuff about him from back, he's not even there. Like, but yeah.
Oh,
So
which one was that?
that was later when the Gwenlyan one where you met like they were building the stuff. One of those builder dudes has like a 4-page. And then when you come back to modern times, like he's not there obviously.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's interesting that they choose to flesh out because again, I don't think this works great as a source book, as a sense of like I want to run a campaign in London because this is a very specific
Big
time in
campaign,
London
yeah.
when shit doesn't stay the same for very long.
Yeah.
But better having too much than not enough, I guess. And then after that was the What Hides Beneath, the Nosferatu chapter, which is our roughest chapter. That's when I gave you guys another time to like prepare. That's when you made the corgi.
Watson.
I think you had like a week or something because you Gabriella, the Nosferatu spy,
Oh yeah.
who you knew could turn
This is a
invisible.
So we said
Half the coder you can see invisible people, but you sent one of the half. That
Thought it
because he
was
can turn into
Two
invisible.
of us and not these
I
two.
was
I thought it was
sneakiest.
these two.
But I also couldn't see the.
You could,
sneak.
yeah, once, yeah. So you just sent
She couldn't
them.
see me, but I couldn't see her.
You watched
Hard
it
to
happen
do.
and then watched her leave. You're like, all right. I follow. I was like, she's gone, dude.
Yeah, he came back. He's like, she was there. Well, where'd she go? I think down there. Well, come on.
Which
Hey,
worked,
I was just supposed to listen in on the meeting. I did my job.
It's true.
but it worked
You're
out.
a
You had a
good
plan
soldier.
B. You had that where you helped the Nosferatu win that argument.
Yeah,
so.
which is how like Catherine had like suggested before. I'm like, no, this is the better plan. Ended up not being great, but we got some information out of
Yeah.
it, so
Yeah.
that's fun.
So, and this was the one. So each chapter, which I think is a cool thing about the book, they're explicit. They say the theme of this chapter is that. So I think I don't know,
Hunger, right?
this one.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
the one was like your mortality, which another thing that we didn't do. So they have optional touchstones for you guys. Like a good touchstone for Alice might be she finds a girl in this situation. Or a good touchstone for Tommy is he sees the next soldier. I just didn't feel like touchstones had a place in this chronicle
Yeah.
really. Like that to like
It's too
take time
emotional.
to get connected to a mortal
Yeah.
and then have them be important and be a conviction to you, especially because I think it's more figuring out your convictions. You don't really know your convictions yet.
Yeah.
So they're there, but we ignored them, and I think it's probably for the better. It'd just be another thing to do. And we still had you still had your cult, you still had Winston. Still sort of worked out where you had things some of you were attached to.
Absolutely.
That preparation week, that's the week I tried to
That might have been Algernon.
That was
Summon.
yeah,
Yes.
I tried
Oh,
is that the
yeah.
week I tried to summon or is it the next week?
No, it was.
It's the next week.
Might have been next week.
Yeah, because I had already met Elgernon
Yeah.
and he told me she was alive, so I tried to
Yeah.
summon her.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So I mean, I'm trying to like wander the city and figure out, like, remember things and call up memories and things like that. And that's when I find
Algernon, which
piece of shit
I didn't even know his name
Ross.
until like that session. I just looked. I'm like, I think she's an enemy because I didn't want it to be everyone has a secret enemy from their
Yeah.
past.
Yeah.
Because you had the Gangrel, you had Calico. I had like two's enough.
Mm-hmm.
So Algernon, I didn't really want to. But I looked. I'm like, let's just say. I'm like, I had no idea where that was gonna go. But that interaction was
Be
so
one of the
good.
most
You were too
relevant-
good at
Oh,
most relevant
that
bad
was
guys
that
there
tit for
was.
tat, and then you feeding off of him.
Just
I'm like,
being-
oh, that's
yeah.
perfect because he wants the blood bath. Yeah, it worked. You said it was me being me.
No, I
No, I did.
Anyone else?
was
but-
thinking it.
It worked out too well. Then he became like the main blast from the past.
Yeah.
So I didn't want like I said, I tried to avoid that, but it worked out organically, and it didn't feel like because
It
yours
didn't feel
also wasn't
forced.
like a constant thing.
Yeah.
Neither was yours. Where you looked into yours a little bit, so it wasn't like a reoccurring where like Marcus was constantly messing with you.
It
Calculus.
wasn't a pressure point
Yeah.
too. Like there wasn't a time frame, and
Yeah.
she's
And I-
like trying to figure this out while also dealing with all this other shit
Yeah.
and not telling anybody.
Because all it gives you on him is like, yeah, I think it might have said you were engaged. I think that's literally it.
Damn.
I don't even know if it says that. She's like a sperm.
So that was
lover.
all very organic for you.
So the next chapter, yeah. But after that, then I was just like, all right, he's got to.
What would trigger Amanda the most?
That's how you get the best performance out of
Yes.
you.
Excellent job.
And the eyebrow raises.
Mhm.
There it is.
So
So then you went down. So yeah, the theme of the second, I don't remember the first one, chaos maybe. Second one was like mortality touchstone. That's why I talked about that. But this one I felt like was the first one. The theme really came through, was like the
Ugh.
hunger thing,
Oh, it came through.
where there's a thing of in the underground. Some people, I don't know, reading about some. So there's a blood sorcery ritual that is throughout the underground, where Richard de Ward's able to make people hungry unless they have like these special rings he gives them. Some people are like, oh, that's a ritual in the book that NPC has. That means a character should be able to do that. So some people got like, I don't know. People are weird. Gamers are. I can make a whole nother
Ben
video
had a
about
sheet about it.
the entitlement of gamers. But yeah, essentially, it's a cool. It's a plot thing. It really. If you take it as like this isn't a balance, whatever, blah blah blah. You're right. It's not. But it makes for a cool plot thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's also the scenes or the chapter where it was really clear that Henry was a serial killer. It was like super clear.
Yeah, that's when
Yeah. The
Corgi.
worst of everyone came out.
Yeah, when I had my corpse corgi.
Yeah,
That
you went down
Finally
yourself.
found a
The
serial
rats.
killer,
So
you
they have a
loved it.
ton of like random encounters that can happen down there, and I went through a few of them. The rats was like one, but I just at the beginning just to make it clear that like a person can't
fucked.
by themselves
Right.
walk around down there. Then you realize flashlights existed, and
Torches.
They're
sorry,
torches.
sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so mechanically they have it to where like after every scene, every encounter, every whatever, you do a rouse check and your hunger go up. But it caps at 3, so you're not gonna like frenzy necessarily.
Yeah.
But later on, like once you get to like the bunker and stuff, they're like, all right, you could bring it to 4 now and
Come
stuff.
on.
What else did we do with that? I don't remember. You got a ring, right?
We
Eventually, yeah.
threatened Richard de Ward, the serial killer lady from down there.
No, his lady.
Yeah,
That
That's,
lady.
that's not
She
the
was
same
a-
person.
Not the same.
Oh, the ray. That's where you got the ring for the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
time. Okay, so they have it to where. So this is where the feeding is supposed to happen because again the thing's hunger. So they're like, all right, start off with like they could do their individual feeding. But again, I brought that in earlier. But during your feeding, all of you have like an encounter with this Richard de Ward spy, and like you could chase him off or beat him up, and all of them, they have a lot of, I don't know, they've. It's always hard to tie things together. This is where I thought it was the weakest tie-in, where half of them drop things out of their pocket when they run away. Like one of
Like in a video game?
yeah.
Yeah.
Where like one is like trying to mess with Alice's cult. She chases him off, and when he climbs a fence, the ring drops out of his pocket. I'm like, why does everyone just have loose pockets? Someone has like a note with the underground thing. I'm like, I just
Like
ignored.
Sonic.
Yeah,
Honestly.
If I hit him, then
yeah. I ignored the pocket connection with the stories.
New band name, Pocket Connection.
Ooh.
But it was
Right
easy
there.
enough.
Fit hole in the
It was easy
pocket.
enough to get you down there, get you what you need to do without that. And I got your ring eventually. But technically, you're supposed to be able to go down there with it, and you could do a thing where like you trade the ring, because so there's rats down there, and that's like the only thing to feed from really. But if you don't have that ring, rats don't even take away your hunger. So it has to be a thing where like you hunt, one of you feeds from rats, you have to give the ring to someone else so they can feed.
Gotcha.
I cannot feed from rats. It's not gonna.
You can just take willpower.
I also get like negative.
Yeah, it's only
Yeah.
I
half.
have
Do it.
really bad stuff.
Yeah.
I can't. Speaking of bad things that happen down there, it made
Yeah,
me
we'll
be
get into
so
that.
mean to the
So we had that, and then we had
You
the
made
character
me-
called the
I
Guardian,
did not like
who
it.
I
cried.
he was
Well, I thought you
he's
were.
in there. He's like an encounter, but he
Yeah.
also like runs right. Like if you hurt him a little bit, he runs. But I just made him creepier. Like I made him naked and able to crawl on the ceiling. That's not actually in there, but
Reminds me of the Crooked Man you made
It
in
made me,
D&D.
it made
I
me
love
sadder
that. Yeah.
just
He was
how
delightful.
awful he was. I
but
literally
he's
cried.
you could tell he's like not all there and like a little
Yeah.
feral. And then because what'd you do? You kept you you had your compulsion.
Yeah,
to, like,
I
harm him.
kept having messy criticals
Yeah.
when I tried to like
Yeah,
stop him.
the book doesn't
and
plan
so then
for
I
you
hurt
to
him.
abuse and torture and
No,
dominate.
I
him.
mean, it doesn't play into
That's
that.
Vampire, baby.
I get that you like want to fulfill fantasies while playing games, but there's a line. It's a
Thank
line.
That was a very painful episode.
Yeah, it's messed up. And then like the heel in the eye. Oh, why'd you do that?
Yeah, why?
Why'd you do that? I mean, I'm glad you gave her just.
Guys,
So
that's
there's the him thing where it's sort of designed where potentially you guys get like beat up and drug off, and then the rest of the coterie meets up with them in like Richard's lair. But
Damn.
you guys handled it. What else? There's the Lost Toreador down there. It's like knows as a party flyer,
Yeah.
which I think you guys just sent him on his way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
told him how to get back.
Last round two.
Serial killer lady. Or didn't meet her, just saw her later.
Kind of. There's the graffiti stuff with like the hidden messages and runes.
Yeah.
I built in the runes thing as a way to potentially find the dagger later. I don't know if the book really says like you see runes because it makes sense if like the whole undergrounds like has this ritual effect that like there's runes written throughout different places to like focus it. So my idea is maybe you can use this to find the focal point, which I made the dagger. That's not actually how it works in the thing,
Okay.
but I wanted you to have a different options of finding the dagger.
Interesting.
Which we'll get to in a second. I like the labyrinth feel too. So it's supposed to be sort of like interchangeable, where there'd be like drafts. You're like, all right, I want to see where this draft is going. Draft's just from nowhere, and there'd be different rumbles and stuff. So it was a cool, like moody. I really like this chapter.
Yeah.
I also love horror stuff, and this leaned into the horror stuff. The map I made up a little bit to sort of give you options, because again, there's so many encounters down here. So like, remember we found the map, and it's like food here, which was the thin blood. So really, that encounter is just you find thin bloods who are hungry, and you can help them. I thought it'd be more interesting to make it like you can feed from them because you guys are starving,
yeah.
but they're gonna try to jump you. So I
was our
sort of
plan.
I altered that a bit for that.
Yeah, that sucked.
Got trapped in that room.
Yeah.
That's good.
Got trapped like I fucking.
I was so
smoked.
emotionally destroyed after that episode. There's
Yeah.
so many things.
And then you find like his like the Guardian's like subway home, like his nest, and you find out who he really was. Now he slowly like went crazy.
Yeah.
That's in the
Wait,
book. That
There's
stuff
salt
is
in the
cool.
wound at that point.
Hey, I didn't even make that up. That was all your evilness coming back to you. But also you find like notes of him where like, you know, they have the rules of like trust the king. You technically can find those earlier, but it also felt weird to me because again, it was like things in his pocket. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, you'll just
Seems
find that
cheap.
when you get to the bunker.
Yeah.
What are some of the other encounters? The maintenance worker. I like that just because of the like you pulling the thing off his legs and it's like
That was
takes the skin
horror.
off.
That was horrible.
but a thing to potentially feed off of or help.
Well, someone got to feed off him
Mm-hmm.
and then didn't leave any more for the rest of us. Told me. Look at you, told me.
What's that?
I'm so hungry.
And then yeah, so the corpse thing was technically built in for like so they have like encounters can happen on the way to the bunker and they have like additional encounters at the end, like on your way out. That was a way end. And all they say about that is that you find a room of corpses and like a serial killer left in there. That's it. So I made up all the like because like if there's a like I like the idea of like they think that's like because I also wanted another way to find a dagger. So
Yeah.
I had them like there's a gate to heaven down here and with different places marked so you could check them out and find. Yeah, they didn't flesh out the actual serial killer, so I made them
Damn,
up as
that's
like
cool.
this weird religious whatever. And finding like a succubus, which really means they've seen some of the Nosferatu down here.
Yeah,
They
feed
think
off.
they're demons, but
Yeah, that's really cool.
So the dagger, is that actually a magical weapon in the thing? No.
no.
Okay.
I made up like the +1. It's just also cool to have a reason to carry one of them around. So
Yeah.
just like
It's
throw
risk,
everything in
yeah.
the safe.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
I
also if you have it on you, that's risky because if something happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of thought that was strange that like that one had a function and all the other ones didn't. It kind of made me a little bit suspicious that the other ones might, and we just weren't like messing with them enough. But
True.
No, none of them
sense.
did. And that technically isn't even like the focus of the spell. I made it because it's a ceremonial magic dagger.
Yeah.
I made it the
It
focus
makes
of the
sense
spell.
for it to be like
Yeah.
useful.
Yeah.
Because the other one's like a hat.
Because so
What is that?
this was the first time I read through the book. I was really disappointed in something was the way they have you find the. Well, we'll get to it. but-
Yeah. Let's meet Richard Reward first.
Yeah. Which is the thing. There's a feral dog encounter, which you guys.
Shoot him away.
You had the guardian shoo him away, so it's fine. Then the bunker, which is cool, like World War II bunker. You guys didn't. There was things you could like, because I talked about like the file cabs and stuff. There was like, because he's a spy master, so there technically was a shit ton of information there. Should you have like looked through it? But you guys had a little bit of that with the file. I like that too, where you got to keep like one file on someone from Anne's vault, and you chose it was his, wasn't it?
Yeah, we took Richards because
Yeah.
we had the least about him.
And then, before that, the Rhea, which I loved that, where she also has like a power just for the book, where she could just be invisible and silent, like a super obfuscate. But I like that she just like took you in circles, getting you hungrier until Tommy's just like, nope.
Yeah.
That's when I got the ring.
Yeah, that was good. And then you made her take you to him. Because otherwise you just find, I think that is built in where she might do that. But I think usually it has it more where like she finds you and fights you. Like so everyone here just attacks you.
Yeah.
I think they expect you to lose some fights and some of you get drug off. But
Okay.
I don't know.
Fighting.
Stat-wise, it probably wasn't going to happen.
Dropping things out of pockets.
So you went to the bunker, you found Richard the Ward. I ran this pretty different. So, with the Memoriam when you met him. This was the first Memoriam where, I liked the first two Memoriams the most. They started getting less interactive, I felt. This was one where like you were in the circle. This was the first one you actually saw Mithras.
Yeah.
And you had the boy, and like Tommy's a chance to help him. So you can interact by like maybe trying to help, but there's not a lot to like do. Where like the first one you're doing your tests, a seance, you're talking to people. This one you just sort of watch this shit happen. So it's a cool hint of like, oh, this is a ritual before it worked that they did to you guys. But I don't know. It's an interesting one, and it gives you this is the first one you're like, oh, Mithras is kind of scary. It might not be a good guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys
Too magic.
are evil, so it's fine.
Return to his throne.
Excuse me?
So there's that. So then when you actually meet him, well, I think you guys just met him in like his office, and he had his talk about like, hey, you could be with me. You guys can have up. I'll have underground, whatever. He did really in the book. He has just like either one of you's like hunger frenzied, or he like has a hunger frenzied vampire that like you're in like a pit, and he like throws the vampire in a pit. You have to like fight it or like feed it, and then he just like monologues and leaves. I don't know. There wasn't a lot to do with him. And then you just attacked him right off the bat anyway.
Yep.
But which worked out, because then he just made you frenzy. So I'm like, it sort of fits that same, because he has that animalism, I think, power. He's in like 5. He's really fucking strong. To make someone frenzy. So I'm like, it's cooler that like it's one of you than like here's a random NPC that you've never seen that, because like what, I don't know. And then it got to the point where it vanished, which is just so good. He's vanished in the obfuscate where you could use your powers on other people. And you guys just wouldn't stop chasing them. Because I also had to think of a reason, like, because in the book, it doesn't give a good reason, like, why doesn't he just fucking kill him?
Yeah.
He uses a dagger, and he's like, oh, that's a fake dagger. Good luck finding the real one. But, like, I don't know. I like it more that he's like, you know what, if you guys want to go, that's fine, because, like, you're easy to spy on, and I'm going to see what you get into to find Mithras and stuff.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's how I was sort of playing it, for him to have a reason not to kill you. But then you kept going after him, so then he had to
I ran.
keep dropping you.
Well,
I frenzy ran.
you got spooked real bad.
Which was also sort of nice, because you guys had taken out Valerius. You guys are super strong, so it's sort of a cool, like, a first encounter, like, oh, yeah, elders are...
It was humbling.
Yeah, we didn't get a lick in, really, and they beat our ass. Even though they did that, Catherine still had to run her mouth and lost an eye.
I wasn't really running my mouth.
Oh, you weren't?
The conversation ended 6 times, and everyone
Oh
there's
my
still
god! You guys were all gone.
You were still
None of you were alive
Doesn't
or
matter.
in this vicinity.
last word, Mandy.
So we got her. That was good. I like that moment, though. It was a good, humbling moment. And then the next step is when we dealt with the aftermath, where you found a cart
with
to
the
push
cart.
around your friends in. You found the serial killer, and that would be the thing with like the ghosts, and you found where like they're digging the dagger. So in the book, you can find the dagger because in the bunker, on a piece of paper shoved into a random pipe, he wrote the latitude and longitude of the dagger.
Oh, that's easy to find. That's helpful.
That's just so random to me. You know, it's like they can do an investigation check, and you see, oh, there's a clogged pipe, and you reach in there, and like, here's the like, that's bizarre.
Also, bad hiding spot for a magical dagger.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just the location. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
weird. To me, but it makes sense. I'm like, okay, so it has to be buried. Because I'm like, why else? Why wouldn't he just keep it on him or hide it?
Right.
So in my mind, I'm like, all right, it's the center point for this huge web of hunger spell. So it has to be a specific spot. That's why it's somewhere not on him, which led. So I'm like, all right, there's probably ghosts around it. There's magic around it. So I wanted different avenues besides finding a crumpled up piece of paper to find it, which worked. Little corgi of all things dug it up.
You all laughed at me when I said my safe haven for the night's going to be the serial killer room, and it led me.
Yeah, you killed the killer. Saw the ghosts.
Yeah,
So the ghost train. Ghost train's on there. Ghost train's just a fun random.
I love
Oh,
it.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Ghost Train is great.
Fuck.
Apparently, it was like a real train accident. Like that's a thing. Like it's a myth in London where they think there's this ghost. Like that's a real thing.
Oh, Ghost Train. Is there a ghost trolley?
I'm sure there's a ghost to everything. Not
Sounds
worse.
good.
There's a ghost in my
Yeah.
Ghost
work
ships are
place.
cool.
Found that about that today.
Do what?
There's a ghost in the place I work. Apparently,
Ghost work. So you had that,
that's exciting.
and then this was supposed to be an encounter before the hobo hunter, which I think is just a cool guy to shopping cart full of weapons, pretending to be a hobo, which ended up being maybe too tough because I think you dropped during that.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Was-
Catherine had to feed on unconscious you, and she pulled out a shopping cart full of.
Listen, we've been through a lot already that night.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was fishing bodies.
Most
after
of us
losing
were
my eye.
unconscious, so.
Yeah, it was just two of you, and you were rolling terribly, I think.
Yeah.
Oh no, you stuck him. And
Yeah.
I did this roll to see how many rounds it took, and it was
Yeah.
like 3 rounds until he was down.
And he
so
had me, and the gun
Yeah.
was around my head. It was fucky.
that was fun.
For you.
So yeah, that was that chapter, which was rough, and then you brought people back.
I feel like it's
Area.
appropriately rough, though.
Yeah, I think it was a
Yeah.
cool middle point of like, because you were like, oh, we're badasses, we're doing nice things, we got this item, we got this item. This one was hard.
It was,
Yeah.
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 Yeah. After that was Ridless and Red Caps, which was the theme was bargaining, dilly-dallying, if you will.
That's what it should have been. Dilly-dallying.
So this one in the book opens with like some ally you have calling for help, like, hey, Antigen has been trapped in my haven. But that was another thing of like, it just felt like a side quest that we didn't necessarily need. Also, you guys didn't have really many allies that I think
That
you
we
cared
would've
that much.
saved.
Would
Or
have risked,
trusted. Yeah.
risked your lives for. So I was like, I just
What
moved
about
past that.
Mithras?
That's true.
Mithras Hall.
Help! So technically, this opens with this whole thing we skipped with. I don't know. You knew where Gwenllian was. You knew she was trapped in the museum. So a lot of it has where you don't know that. You have to find that out. When someone's like, hey, this vampire knows. And this is Nosferatu runs a theater, and you have to go to a rival theater company and get one of their best actresses to go over to her theater. It's
That
like,
would have been fun. I actually like that.
it seemed neat, but like it was lengthy.
Yeah.
And all of that was just to be like, she's in the museum.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then we had so many other things leading up to it, and
Yeah.
it came out organically. Someone made the right connection, or right, like
Najma got us to.
maybe, where someone just found out on their own. I'm like, that's there's enough shit going on. So I think that it's written, but I said very detailed. I went all in for essentially your payoff is she's in the museum.
Yeah.
But the whole point of this is to show, like, yeah, vampires there's always a price, there's always all this hoops you have to jump through just for a little bit of it.
So was her granddaughter made up, or did was that
No,
in the book?
so I did skip that. The Chun Wei, so she is connected to Adisa. So you're doing the Adisa stuff. That's why we got to sort of skip that. But she usually jumps you. She's a badass Bruja. She has ghouls. So like in the meat packing or the slaughterhouse,
Yeah.
because Gwenllian's wanted by the Camarilla. So if people ask, so she'd be like, she's in the museum. Her grandchild will meet you if you want more information. But if the grandchild, like Chun's a pretty violent person, if anyone's asking about Gwenllian, she assumes you're trying to bring her in. So so essentially her thing is she meets people, beats their ass, tortures them, and says, "Why are you looking for? What do you actually want?" So it's a thing where like you could lose the fight and you could just be like, "Look, we actually just want to help her," and she's like, "Okay, cool." But because you're the thing, and you were, I think, very like respectful to her and stuff. She's something where like if she catches you in a lie, anything done wrong, she attacks you. But you guys actually didn't do anything wrong in that. I added the part about, because the bargain there is just to get her out, but I'm like, that seems obvious, so I added the part of like, I wanted Antigen to be a part of like, hey, make an example of Antigen there. So I made up.
Okay.
Which you guys ran with. That was fun. We did that, and then there's like Regina Blake at the Elysium, which, again, just sort of a thing where the better off you are negotiating, the better things are. Because she tells you, like, oh, there's a party there, bring clothes. Because otherwise, you probably sort of went, come out of the sewers all messy, and then all of a sudden it's this fancy museum party, and you guys could not blend in.
No.
So it's a thing where, like, if you play it right, you get this little bit of information to make the next step easier. You handled getting your ghoul out of jail really well.
Fun.
That was good.
That was really fun.
That was a thing, though, as a thing. You could connect with them, too, because they all, Antigen hits them. Like, all of them die. Like, Regina, that whole, because it's an illegal Elysium, they all get wiped out. You did that, went through the sewer, which is also, because the underground was so rough, I felt bad, like, oh, you're going right back in the underground.
I was really happy you didn't make it terrible.
Yeah,
We just made a bargain.
Which that was a real, like, the kindred, the Nosferatu who needs kindred blood is a thing. And there is an Antigen, like, blockade down there, so you're able to avoid that. It has an encounter with, like, the Nosferatu jump you. But I'm like, it makes sense that right now they're sort of questioning Richard Award's thing. And they're no
There's
longer...
so many Antigen
and
novels,
because
right?
I made the dagger part of the thing, so it took away his power over them to make him hungry. So they're not necessarily all just, like, going to attack you. But in the book, again, that spell's just him. The dagger doesn't really matter. So you get jumped again. But I'm like, you guys have fought enough down there.
Oh, yeah.
So a couple other things I skipped just because it's like a group of like urban explorers. And things are like, I don't know. There's enough to do.
Yeah.
And then in the museum. It's like you guys did a pretty clever way of checking and finding, like using your etiquette to see who that, because it's the thing where like there's Antigen agents there. That's your first opportunity to actually potentially, because I mean some coders might want to use Antigen. This is your first chance to like meet with them in an environment where you're not just going to start fighting. And if you want to bargain with them, now's the time to do it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a long shot for any group, I would think. You just ghosted your way through.
That was tight.
You, by that point, luckily had just gotten the power to where you didn't show up on cameras. So that was perfect timing for that. And you found...
we just dilly-dallied.
Cap?
Dude,
We were
Yeah,
Americans.
you two
We were
pretended-
Americans.
Yeah.
You went deep undercover.
That's
deep
right.
undercover. It was so much fun.
You found that Antigen with the white dress.
Mm-hmm.
That was fun.
Yeah, this is where I
Did a fake
used...
fight.
Yeah.
This is some of our best role
One of
playing,
our best role
honestly.
playing.
Just
I,
went with
I
it.
set the Antigen. They have some NPC stats for some of the Antigen agents. They have one like really high level agent. And that was the woman there. So I actually used like an actual character from the book. Like
Okay.
if you want to try to fuck with her, she's good.
Yeah, she didn't seem that drunk.
Sister.
No, you put a
What'd you
ghost in her and get her to come
Disaster.
down, and the
Yeah.
Nosferatu just
Yeah,
rips
got
her
a
intro.
fucking Ghost powers.
Yeah, that was the thing that was potentially like very high risk. Like you fucked that up, so you guys pulled that
There's
off in
all the
a
right
very
prepping
gruesome,
beforehand.
but yeah,
Yeah.
that
I
was,
feel like
yeah.
everyone just
It was nice where you did a lot of planning and it paid off.
And I
Yeah.
had my southern accent on, so that really
had a southern
that was
accent.
my
was
contribution.
your
That's
discipline.
when we did that. That's also my least favorite memoriam. It's so long.
And we didn't do anything in
There's
it.
like
It was just
no,
like a montage.
yeah. There's like nowhere. There's a couple
That's
places
with
to interact.
Arcadius or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty
There,
long.
I think it's a 4-part, and you're just seeing things built. It doesn't really have anything to do with Gwenllian. I added so like Gwenllian's one who like pulled the rock off of you when you were like the humans. That's just a random person does that in the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Add a little more connection.
It's more you really only see her that you see that she's the one who got the cap, and the one dude was pissed. Which I tried to use because she's on like the list. I tried making it where that was a dude who set her up to be on the list. I think she mentioned that.
Yeah.
So there was an option that like if you wanted to go the Queen Anne route, you're gonna have to help her get off the list. So that'll come into play. But you didn't do the route, so it's fine. But yeah, otherwise like it's such a long memoriam just to see, like, the Mithraium's cool.
Oh yeah.
But you don't need to see 4 times it getting built in different stages. But I thought it was more interesting to see the Mithras thing, and I don't know. But
For sure.
that's my least favorite, for sure. And I really struggled how to, like, because I didn't want to do my own thing. I really wanted to, like, I added things, but I didn't want to change anything too much because I wanted this to be a representation of how the book's written.
Sure.
So I didn't want to be like, let me make my own. I thought about it because she's like a badass, like Scottish
She's
warrior.
so cool, and
like,
we don't see very much of her.
and she was there like before the Romans came. Like she's old. So
Yeah.
like Mithras came with the Romans
Yeah.
and she like fought against them and then got turned. So I'm like, oh, that could be a badass memoriam. But I'm like, that's not what's in the book. So
Bring her into Taste of Youth. Like,
sure,
she comes over.
beat your ass there.
And
That worked out well.
Tours.
And she's also, and that's when she explains what happened to you. She explains the blooding.
Yeah, that's
And that's when, this is your first elder that sort of gives you a choice on, like, she could be either side. So at this point in the story, if the coterie like, yeah, we're not sure about Mithras, you can use her to be like, let's help you get in with the Camarilla and let's take down Mithras. Or what you guys did barely, you messed up a little bit the first time. At the end, that's when she's thinking like, because she, as written, is more leaning towards against Mithras. Because again, she's very old. She sort of deserves like, but she's like also Mithras, like it's a smart thing to do. So she's on the fence, but she's more against Mithras. So it really, if it takes you guys to convince her.
So fortunately, not all of us were super Mithrasy.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think you talk at the very end. She was like,
I gave a rousing.
I could just kill them all,
rousing speech.
and that'd be that. But you convinced her to join a Mithras, so that worked out well. And then we didn't have to worry about the subplot of getting her off the list, which is good because they don't write anything about that. They say she's on there for killing a prince or someone from a different thing, but like they don't give any details.
Yeah.
So I would have had to really pad that with something for how to get her off the list, but worked out well.
You're welcome.
We did that, got the tunnels, blah, blah, blah. And then we had another sort of made up chapter, which was our sort of dealing with the past before the Mithras stuff. This is where we had our guest star, Astera. Did a great job. And at the beginning, so we knew we were going to have a guest star from like early on. I didn't know who she was going to play. Because again, there's not a lot, there's a ton of NPCs. There's not a lot of that like super important and stick around. So because of the Algernon stuff and making like Lady Angelique important, I'm like, oh, that's perfect. So I thought that was an interesting person to bring in for that.
Cool.
And especially because I knew her role-playing background. It's very like classic vampire LARP and stuff, which I feel like is probably Lady Angelique, she's old school, knows the rules and whatnot.
Great etiquette.
Yeah. So yeah, we opened with you guys being at the ocean. You doing that. And that's when I sort of entered the Tremere stuff. There's no gargoyles.
What? That was my favorite part where the gargoyles.
None of that is in there.
The
Like again,
gargoyle
Algernon's
castle?
not really in there. Yeah.
True, yeah.
So that was me thinking, I wanted to use, I like the gargoyles,
That's so cool.
but they're so kind of goofy. I wouldn't want them in Taste of Youth or anything.
What? Bring them in.
But and like if we're playing like London and like dealing with a lot of old vampires, I'm like, if there's ever time these gargoyles,
Yeah.
this is it. And I like the idea that like again, Mithras had the Tremere. The Tremere just now got in, so I'm like, I want to show. And these are the old school Tremere. Old school Tremere's gargoyles, and we already know Edward's like wants to keep the pyramid. So my idea is like, they found Venture's the ruling class. Queen Anne's a Venture, Valerius is a Venture, Mithras is a Venture. So sort of a thing to where they found a low-level Venture and they're like, all right, we have all this stuff, but we need a Venture to be legitimate. So sort of Algernon helped the Tremere become legitimate. In exchange, they like, here's a gargoyle, here's their castle. Like they sort of used him, but Algernon's fine being used as long as he rises with the tide. We did that. You got to see which I like the whole setup. I guess that we sort of skipped that, where you like wanted proof and they showed you like her staked and stuff.
Yeah.
And like her crying the blood. Because of the thing, she was staked, so she knew she was being summoned, but she couldn't do anything. So that's what, yeah. But also, so I think there's a way you can use like some mental powers while like staked and stuff. So that's why in my head, I wanted her to be able to play, obviously. So I'm like, it makes sense when they finally moved her, like she was able to like.
Well, and I like to
get a
think
goal
the
to unstick.
summoning might have like awoken.
Yeah, that's sort of if I was
whatever.
playing it,
Yeah.
is that sort of rattled her from her blood bond.
Mhm.
Also, I love the choice. The whole like, okay, here's your lover, Diablerizer, your souls are one, and then you're free.
Yeah.
Or you're both alive, you're both together, but you're mine,
Yeah.
which was beautiful. on my
Monster.
part.
So that wasn't in the book?
That was in my book,
It's
my
old
playbook.
Your playbook. Jesus.
And also, I didn't want her to
Diary.
necessarily be
Yeah.
just like, all right, here's another like player to like help you in this fight. I wanted to be just kind of a role playing thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, there wasn't a part of me thought she might convince you to Diablerize her, even like sacrifice herself so
Yeah.
you could be free. We didn't talk really about
Yeah.
what and she was, a lot of that was sort of thrown on her. She had a little bit of the background, but
Damn.
She did great.
she did not know like that she was going to be starting staked. Like she didn't know. Like she just rolled with all that.
Fuck.
And then
She's great, man.
You hunger frenzied off the bat, so she got to start with, okay, my child / lover is in the middle of a hunger frenzy, about
Also,
to
you
get.
made me roll for her, even though I have notoriously terrible
That was such a-
rolls.
that was a great
I
decision.
cry often when I roll the dice
Because
but
it felt
you made-
heavier. Because I could have
I was
rolled
sweating
for her,
so much.
and she could have rolled for herself, but also she's never played V5 before, so I'm like, I'll just roll like whatever shit was easier. But I'm like, you could just do it. So when something bad happens, you really feel it, and you roll
I
back.
always feel. Thank you.
Yeah. But it still ended up cool, where she got to like dread gaze one away.
Yeah.
That was
You use
badass.
your like infernal majesty to make Algernon run.
Yeah.
And then you like walk hand in hand into the party, like all the ghouls guns out, and you again just lost your shit and just made them run. She stopped the one that was gonna stake you and staked out. So it was still like
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, yeah.
And then we had our boat scene. You guys thought I loved how you're prepared to like take over the ship. It's just a nice old dude. Like,
Also
all
named
right,
Tommy.
we'll take a ride.
And he was like, my friend's over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a weird
Nice
offbeat
guy.
British comedy
Yeah.
Yeah.
with vampires.
And then you guys showed up, which was also good because then you used your thing to like find her. And
Yeah,
then
that was
also
fun.
you being there was like, oh, this is Tremere shit. That's where you got your sword. It was sort of a cool coming together with all of that. But then she made you meet Queen Anne, which I loved. Because all of you were like, okay. You could tell no one wanted to like actually like take her to the queen, but that was great.
Can we not do that?
So you guys don't know how to act.
We know that
What?
we should not be hanging out with Queen Anne because she's
Oh, yeah?
a bitch.
Yeah. But also, like, I like the idea. That's what I ran with at the end. I'm like, she's the type that, like, she's also not a fighter. If she doesn't know what's going on. She's been in torpor forever. If she could get in with the queen right away, kind of feel out what's going on, then she could try to maneuver from there. And then meanwhile, Queen Anne thinks that she has a hostage over you.
Yeah.
So it's sort of an interesting thing with that and your antigen mission. That's also the episode that we had your stuff, just fucking nuts with the blood boiling.
Yeah. Get
And
Cauldron of Blood, guys.
It's cool.
another thing I sort of added is I gave them a ton of XP because
Oh,
they're
yeah.
supposed to be
That was
the
awesome.
heralds.
Thank you.
If you follow like the suggested XP rules in like the core book, none of them are going to be that strong. You're older. I mean, technically you're old because you've been in torpor for so long, but I still wanted the idea that you guys were like badasses.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
There's
let's.
a reason, like, you're supposed to be bringing back the
Yeah.
god from the people that killed
Right.
him. Like,
I wanted people to be like, oh, you're the herald. So I wanted you to feel important
Fucking
and like your roles meant something and you like used to be
Yeah.
badasses. So I gave them an average of 8 XP, I think, every session. And at the end, just ramped it up to like, I gave you what?
30?
31
30 at the
episodes.
last.
Awesome.
For the finale, I gave you
God,
30
it was
XP to
awesome.
use, which we'll get to. So you had stuff like Cauldron of Blood, which if you play normal Chronicle or normal XP rules, probably not going to happen.
And Majesty
Yeah.
between those
Okay.
two. So.
But that was cool. And then Calico, I've been planning to like, so her thing is like, she can't just fight Tommy, but like figuring out who Tommy's with and try to get him to hurt one of you. And that was, you were the target because you broke the Masquerade. You had a bunch of homeless people know this vampire chick who's teaching magic. So wasn't that hard for like someone to find out about that? Then she just sort of, and you also had never met Calico. You never really described her. So it was easy. It's like someone just be in your midst. And that worked out well. I like the raid. You're going ghosts and like this lady just like, yeah, let's get out of here, trusting her, and she pulls up to the lab.
Which we don't know about.
Exactly, which was
Yeah.
also perfect. It was all these things that like,
Too
as
many
players, you
secrets.
all see it coming together, but your character's like, okay.
We don't know about Henry's lab.
Yeah, the lab was, you coming back to find a Winston all fucked up.
Yeah.
Than Marcus. Because that was the thing, too. I was wondering, but you never I like that he's like, yeah, man, you're arrogant as shit.
Yeah.
Like,
He
you
was-
know I escaped from this hellhole, and you're just hanging out here now?
And I was
Fuck.
like, but I'm different. She's not.
Yeah.
She's not kindred. He goes, that's even worse, man. He goes, oh, maybe I'm the same person.
yeah, that was great. And then your final words were like, so I did not plan on him fighting you, because he could easily take
Oh
you.
yeah.
So his thing was he was gonna like hurt you a little bit just to like rough you up.
Yeah.
But then like sort of explain what his plan was. And you grabbed a saw and tried killing him. It's like, okay, I guess he's gonna.
Well, because they kept like coming close and like intimidating, like.
You
here-
tried. Yeah.
And if I was a ganger who like I did experiments to, I would want to kill Dr. Henry too. So I was just like getting ready, and he's like, "Any last words? I wish I used more brick."
yeah. Should have done another. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I guess they're fighting now. Not what I planned,
That was
but
in the middle of me doing my ceremony to get fighters for me. It was so bad.
yeah, it was perfect.
Fuck you.
So that happened. You two showed up. Catherine stayed in the car.
That was great.
This wasn't-
The Malkavian have to use their imitation stuff to
Yeah.
make you hate him, which worked was self-fulfilling because then he got Katie killed. So yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, that was my way of like, I just took all the loose ends and like, how do I just bring this all together in one thing? I thought that was a cool scene. The fight was hectic, chaotic. Like I said, so their plan was they were gonna let you go, but they were gonna brick you two and Winston up, and be like, because that's what you did to him. And Calico was thinking like, you're the executioner. You're probably gonna have to kill one of your friends if you want to get out of this. And you were just either gonna have to get killed by your friend, you're gonna have to kill Winston to survive to feed. So it was a thing where like they're like, you need to be punished.
Impossible.
Yeah.
We don't need to just kill you. You guys need to be punished using part of your crimes as your thing. But Tommy wasn't having that, which makes sense too. I mean, like you just swinging, it makes sense not to let them do their setup. They had that. I had
Too much dilly dallying.
they had a cement truck, and they were gonna literally just like cement the basement off.
Holy fuck.
Which I don't know.
My beautiful laboratory.
Yeah,
Oh, if only one of us could walk through walls. Their plan was flawless.
you can't get them out.
Yeah, but I can go in and visit
Go
them.
in.
Say hi.
Yeah, you can
It's
visit.
like,
Hi. Bye. So no, that was a cool fight, especially like you did well in the fact that like you kind of had them on their toes because Alice, her, and Marcus fighting just you should have just fucked you up immediately, but you hurt her enough for she had to run, and I just love Catherine being in the car,
Oh,
looking
I-
out and just
The visuals in my head
Yeah.
were so good.
having
They
to
were
step
Oscar
out of the
quality.
car, majesty.
I just had a shit fucking night.
Yeah.
And you guys can't just like come get in the car. There's always a fight.
No, it was a great ending to
Crazy ass
Calico.
Malkavian.
It was a great. It sucked killing Winston, but also at that point,
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
Marcus probably losing.
he
his shit.
smashed his head in. You,
Yeah, there was no way to get around it.
Yeah,
It's rough.
but
You get him back.
yeah, that was also a great way to bring him back. I was like hosting him as a ghost.
I was so ready for that.
That was beautiful. And then we sort of had our gathering the troops, which they kind of have in the book at the end. You could get your out, but gathering the troops is typically for joining Queen Anne. So it's not really a way to have like they don't count on you having the Thin Bloods or you having a cult. So that was a cool thing to do.
fun.
And then what else? Gather the things. And that's sort of a thing I added too. So I had it written out where if you wanted to go after the antigen thing, because I also wanted you like because she told you like, hey, our Jessica Carr is a Malkavian. She'll know if you're not doing what you're supposed to do. So it's a thing like as soon as you sent other people to do it, they were like, okay, we need to. They're going to Mithras. We need to stop them. But it was still a thing where you got to like two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
And Gwenlyn, if anyone, that was the group that hates antigen anyway, with her grandchild stuff, so that worked out well. But I had all that fleshed out as a possibility. The dude with true faith was in that place. So if you were to attack, that sort of would have been the showdown is the dude with like this
God
faith,
power.
anti-vampire power would have been there. And it's more, so, but I didn't really want to end battles, so it'd be sort of that or Mithras. So how in the book it works is that there's the thing I did where Antigen offers you amnesty sort of thing. They say, hey, this shit's done. And that's why I sort of like, that was actually a really cool way of revealing, like, I'm going to call Jimmy. Jimmy doesn't answer, like, okay, Darren. That's when you start realizing, shit, okay,
Yeah.
the
A lot of things have
Antigen's
happened.
purging right now. Like,
Yeah.
it's sort of all coming to this. That doesn't really happen in the book, but it's a thing of, like, it kind of doesn't, But I like it happening in, like, one night where shit just gets bad. And that's also the thing. So in the book, that happens. They sort of have, like, give them a chance to have their final conversation with certain NPCs and have your, like, vignettes. But, again, you didn't really collect any, like, crucial NPCs. You had, like, the ones you did, I think, already happened.
Yeah,
Organically,
already
like,
Yeah.
did
You
it.
talk to your child anyway. Like
Yeah,
the
with
stuff-
Najma, Winston, your cult, like, all that worked out, so we didn't really have to do that. And then have, like, the final conversation of what to do. I think they expect the coterie to really be on the fence about Mithras more than you guys were. But it's sort of a hard...
After playing a teen vampire for so long,
Yeah.
I was so...
I feel like you guys are ready to just, go wild.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of hard to like play a role-playing game, and they give you a character to buy into and a concept to buy into. Like it starts off with buy into the fact that you're the heralds and that you're working to get Mithras back. But I think a lot of people's first instincts probably isn't to rebel against that idea.
Right,
really.
you feel like you're going against what the Chronicle wants. But,
Well-
like, it feels like the Chronicle almost, like, expects you not to. But, like, to me, it seems more organic to sort of go that route a bit. I don't know.
I think there's an urge in like a lot of stories when you're supposed to like when your end goal is like bring somebody back. Just in
Yeah.
general, there's like you expect there to be a twist.
Yeah.
So I think some people going into this to be like, we're gonna bring Mithras back, and then like Mandy definitely had that of like, I don't trust this. So I think if we were,
She's watched too many M. Night Shyamalan movies.
but I think that there are gonna be people who come to this who, especially like an authority figures
was
who you're supposed to
Mithras the
worship
whole
like a
time.
god, are gonna be like, wait a second.
Yeah, I think I did a decent job of showing that Mithras isn't just, like, a great person.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah.
But who is, though? Like, Queen Anne isn't necessarily, like...
No,
Is
well,
there any
and that's like
vampires that are good?
Yeah, that's
the fact that
the
he chose
thing.
us as his heralds, I'm like, this guy's not a
We're
good
not
dude.
good guys.
Yeah.
well, I mean, Catherine is she got him amnesty.
You didn't
I'm
take
saying-
Hang on.
it.
I'm saying I was good enough to not.
I was
read
offered
it.
a deal with Antigen. Did I boil the blood out of that deal? Maybe.
Yes, she did.
Maybe. But
The other pre-gen, Tonicus of the
Here's
Bruja,
your
has a
deal.
little bit more of an anti-Mithras leaning too. So how we played it, where 3 were pretty... Alice is pretty much all in. Tommy is kind of simple. Henry, the only way to really be against if you're the type to like, oh, here's my chance to like kill him and study him.
Yeah.
So it just sort of depends, but that's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
On
that's pretty
paper,
far in.
my ambition is to see Mithras return to his throne. So I'm like,
That's your, like, those aren't your real ambitions.
no, they are now.
Oh, okay. And that's another thing we did that I made up was the metamorphosis. So they have a thing in the book where they talk about like, see the choices your characters made throughout, and like at the end as a storyteller you could be like, okay, like, because each pre-gen has an elder that like is their main source of blood pretty much. For Tommy it's Richard de Ward, the other Nosferatu. Catherine it's Valerius, the other Ventru. For you it's Pater Thomas, Hecata or Cappadocian he is. For Alice it's Sri Sansa. For Tony, the other one, it's Gwenllian. So there's ways to like, depending, and it's kind of cool because you meet the characters too. Some of them are alive at the same time. So like this, it says at the end like that person could sort of like shift their outlook or whatever. Because Mithras did this, he picked his most loyal elders, and essentially his idea was sort of like, he was fine with your memories being wiped and like
Right.
you just being loyal to him. But so how I did it, instead of just like doing an epilogue, okay, let's see who you are. For one, it's sort of a metamorphosis thing, just so we could be like, all right, you're healed, you're not hungry, let's do this, just to keep it going. Yeah. But also, I just wrote out questions that would be like, a lot of them, some were open-ended, like, what do you think of Mithras, or like, whatever. But some were like this or this. And those were like, one answer was more of the elder in you, one was more of like, because the storyteller, I get to see who you really are too. So I thought, I don't know how you guys feel about
I love that.
That was cool.
it was
really fun to think about.
Perfect mood song for it too. It was perfect.
This is a good, that was a really good addition, I think.
And it felt stressful too. Like, am I answering wrong?
Yeah, it's a
But,
thing where like shit, and they're like heavy. Yeah, so I would watch that. I would steal that. So I thought that was cool. Also, it's great to get in that headspace right before you meet Mithras.
Yeah.
So instead of you going in, like I make you think about like, what do I feel about him? What do I want? And now go get it Mithras. So it's nice to sort of like make those decisions, say them out loud, and then go for the ending. So how the book has it, the ending. Again, it's pretty open. They give all the options, so none of them are really fleshed out. So there's obviously there's option to go with Queen Anne. That option has like you and the Justicar, potentially like kidnapping Pater Thomas and using him against Mithras, or using a fake. One of the items is a fake, and going there, the ritual doesn't work and it actually hurts him because he like opens himself up, and then you have a weakened, and then you kill him.
Damn.
So there's those options that they have. They have the option of joining Antigen, just going nuclear. It's kind of cool actually how they have it is like your initial deal is kind of shitty where it's like, okay, like we'll let you live, but like we're gonna experiment on you, we're gonna do this and that. But they're like, if you give us other kindred, we'll just let you go. You just have a tracker on you. And how they have it is like you set up like fake meetings with like you call Gwendolyn, it's like, all right, like we need to meet you here, and like Antigen's there. And like you Diablo, like they let you feed from them because they're like, we're killing these kindred. Like, yeah, if you want to eat them, go for it. So it's potential if you have like a chaotic group that they can
That's
just
metal.
join Antigen, kill all the kindred, eat them, and then they're just super strong. And I don't know, everything's gone to hell. It's an option.
play it
That is
again.
the
Let's
Law
do
of
it.
London.
Yeah, it's
No,
it's
I think that is like a cool idea of like playing it with different storylines. It's like
Yeah.
those like
Choose your own adventure?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it feels like. Which that's never a side
yeah.
I would think to go down or to follow Queen Anne. Like all,
Yeah.
like I feel like.
Yeah, I
they
think
chose
Queen
what
Anne's
I
one of the
thought
main
was-
ones. There's also one where you could be out for yourselves, where you're against Queen Anne and Mithras, where you could sort of do a little bit of both, where you could do the ritual and Mithras is weakened, you kill him, or maybe you feed from him and then you attack Queen Anne. So there's a thing where like you carve out London for yourselves, like you guys rule London now. Obviously, it's probably the hardest. They even have an option that's like they just want to run away. So I'm like, maybe they do, and that's more or less like you have to strike a deal with some of the kindred that are like sneaking people out, or you're like dealing with like Antigen checkpoints.
Yeah.
Definitely the least exciting option. I don't see any group being like we run at the end. But,
Just road trip the
It's
rest of
there.
the way. It becomes a
yeah,
buddy cop.
the Mithras option,
Yeah, yeah.
which you guys
Friends.
chose. I ran very different. This is where I did because so if you choose the Mithras option, so in the book, a Sabbat pack. Monty is the one who drinks Mithras, gets taken over by Mithras, and then he just dominates the rest of the pack. And they're in London. So in the book, you kind of know that. You know Mithras is around. I played it off more as Mithras is dead. This ritual brings him back.
Yeah.
So when you met him, you're like, oh shit, who's okay? This
Yeah,
is
when it looked like you were like,
And none of the like big kindred seem to know he's there, which seems like crazy to me. Like he's like the best kept secret in London.
yeah. That's his whole point. They weren't even like in London. They came into London at the end, essentially.
okay, guys.
So, but really, you're supposed to like find out, and like you go in expecting, like I know he's there, but also that to me that makes it way less likely, like as an option to join Queen Anne. Like you're not going to join Queen Anne if you know Mithras is alive.
Yeah.
He's just in
Yeah.
a different body. That's scary, and like I don't know. So I really wanted to make it as maybe, either way as possible. So I didn't reveal that he was still around until you were literally introduced to him.
Makes for a better game.
But also you can like notice that he's not at his full strength and stuff. But yeah, so in the book, if you choose that option, you go to him, you do the ritual. The ritual works. And then you just walk out with him, and like Antigen's there, and he just kills like all the Antigen people. And it's like they can participate if they want, but they don't really have to because that's Mithras. And then he kills the people in his like pack because he doesn't need them, and then you just sort of win. So it's very anticlimactic, I think. Like you literally like it's hard getting to that point, but at the end you literally just go in, do it. Antigen attacks, but they attack when you're with a fully powered Mithras. So it's like you don't like. It literally says they can attack some if they want. So I'm like, it's not really you want a final battle. It feels like it should be a final battle.
Well, also,
Climactic.
besides the Nosferatu, it doesn't feel that like life or death. Like, oh shit, we might not do it.
There's this whole book maybe has 2 to 3 like encounters you can't not fight, and that's like when Elysium's attacked, like you're gonna have to fight someone
obviously
there.
That's a force.
In the underground, you're gonna have to fight someone. Honestly, that's it.
Yeah.
You don't have to fight Valerius. You can
Yeah.
talk your way out of that. But I mean, that makes sense. Like Vampire's
Yeah.
not a combat-heavy game.
Yeah.
But like,
For
for there
sure,
to
that's
be
how we
like
play
so
it.
little combat, and even at
Honestly.
the end, you just like walk away victorious. Felt a little cheap. Didn't feel like.
Man, I never had a game like that before. I felt good. I slept good that night.
Yeah.
So I did it to where I'm like, okay, who should actually be like? So if they go the Mithras route, I open up the antigen. So I'm like, if they go for that, I have that covered. And if that happened, Mithras would probably be an easier like. Mithras is back because I don't want 2 giant
Yeah.
fights in a row.
Yeah.
So that's why I sort of gave you the option to do that.
But also, I like that. Like, if we're the heralds, we should be there bringing him back. Like, that is like
Yeah,
our
so I-
job. I
so-
like that you kind of like you really very much showed us that option of like you've built these relationships, use them.
Yeah.
They're also stronger than you, and literally stronger than you. So just like I liked that story leading bit. I think that's necessary sometimes to like. Well, especially because I forget everything all the time, as we all know. So like the reminder of like, ooh, you should probably actually do this. I think that's helpful.
Yeah. So I got to do the thing. So how I ran it. So like I said, in the book, that's pretty much the end of it. I did it to where I think it was 12 rounds I had in my head, and every success you got took away a round. Because I had it to where you can't really like the fight was I had. So I had there's a Justicar there, but she's introduced at the very end, and like a Justicar's, if you know the lore, a big deal. Like if a Justicar comes, even the Prince of the City is like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Because that means like the Camarilla, not the Camarilla City, like have sent someone to deal with something.
Badass.
So I'm like, I want her to be physically involved in this. Edward was like, you didn't really interact with him, but you know the Tremere's involved. I introduced a gargoyle, so like he comes, and I like that he came like he did that same ribbon thing you did. It's like fuck, okay, so you follow this here, and also like because you all had level 5 power, so I'm like I'm busting out that stake.
Yeah.
That like there's a heart-seeking stake that if it hits you, it's final death. So I wanted different parts of the battle to be. Because again, vampire just straight combat can be iffy. So I had the aspect of like, there's an invisible Tremere flying at Mithras. If he gets there, no one stops him. He's going to kill him because he has this crazy stake. There's the gargoyle aspect where they're strong enough to where like I had the pack keep them off, but like enough rounds happen, they're going to get there and like they're gonna fuck you up.
Right.
And you have the one super strong kindred, the Justicar, who you 2 dealt with. Who just has like crazy celerity and stuff. It's just a straight, no nonsense, shoot you in the head till you're dead. And then all the ghouls, which, especially at your levels, throwing a bunch of ghouls could be one thing where it sucks, we're just getting shot, but also like some of your social powers, like you could have used the ghouls on your side, honestly. But is what it is. And it's always fun having fodder just to feel like a badass. So I sort of had the different stages of it happen. You guys rolled great, and then you continued to knock off chunks once you're in it. So I think it only went 3 or 4 rounds.
Yeah.
But timing-wise, it was perfect, because then he got there. You, with Winston helping you, helped hold him back.
Yeah.
You had a lot of successes to where you just needed the one, which was also a fucking great call to, like, use your ghost to, like... You risked it, yeah.
It was
And I made you
fast.
roll
I
against
know.
yourself,
That
too.
was the move of the
You're like,
night.
can I use willpower? I'm like, that's for him, but all right.
That was the move of the night. That
Good
was
on you
awesome.
rolling terribly
was-
for his blood source. Because he had more dice than you.
I'm sure he did. I just remember thinking, like, this is the last one. If I'm ever going to try to use, like, a combo of
Yeah.
everything I prepped,
Yeah.
So that was cool.
if I'm going to exploit the powers I just used or die, I'm going to try it. Because,
Yeah,
It
so that
was
happened.
cool.
You resisted the stake.
and Alice would have, I think, died to bring Mithras back.
Probably.
Like, she was very...
You got to finally get in the one girl's head. Tommy just had to fight everybody, as always.
Jumping around, fighting.
But also I got to do the old school, because the Tremere used to have, like, the firepower. So I had a thing where, like, depending on how many rounds, like, Edward was super fucking strong, where he could just set people on fire.
Which I was also protected against.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's so
compounded.
good.
I couldn't be shot, staked, or burnt.
You didn't exist.
No, I didn't.
So it was cool timing wise. And Mithras, I just made up. I mean, Mithras is fully statted out, both versions of him. But I mean, his whole thing is he's like the sun and stuff. So I think it's cool just to melt
Yeah,
Kindred. And that was our ending.
that was fun.
We did a little bit of epilogues in our after show.
Yeah.
And there's a thing. So how the book is, they give you a like an after London if you want to run it, but there's not much going on, and things are super scary, and like Kindred don't even really interact with each other. Like no more than like two are supposed to ever meet. So it could be an interesting thing to run, but I think this works really well. Like how we did it, just a contained story.
Yeah.
Sort of short chronicle. I can't imagine bringing characters into this and then playing them after, or especially I think
We did like a reunion episode, maybe.
maybe.
I want to play Dr. Henry again so bad.
But I think you have to use the pre. How do you feel about the pre-gens? There's a thing because a lot of people, especially if they're reading, like they're like, well, I don't want to use pre-gens, or I don't want my players to have to play some other character. How do you feel about it?
I really liked it.
Yeah, especially because Vampire, we've only been playing for like over a year, maybe two.
Just one.
Just one. Okay. Like pre-gen D&D things I don't like because I know that game. With this game, I think it helps for this chronicle, especially with the whole memory loss. It makes it more like, yeah, give me a character and let me learn about this character rather than me having to constantly build off that. But yeah, and also Hakata. Never played Hakata, so
I like it because they give you just enough to say, like this one, they have like the concept, which is for Alice is like priestess witch, and then you have like your base ambition you start with, and you have touch of, but then you also can kind of fill in, especially I guess the way that we did it, where you gave us XP and we kind of like leveled and could. In the first few times we leveled up, you were like, think of a memory. For
Yeah,
how
I
you
dropped
got
that because you guys sucked at it.
Yeah, I wasn't good at all.
I
What I
didn't get
will
to do
say
one.
is,
She ruined it.
hey, mine was
I
good.
did. I'm sorry.
I
It's
worked
one
very
minute.
hard on mine.
That was like the first
Very
session when
happy.
we did that. Like everybody did theirs, used their power besides me. And the second session, it was like,
Yeah, I gave up because it seemed like I don't know. It seemed like you guys really struggled to think of something. I'm like, all right, I don't want to waste time.
I'll take 100% of the points. I don't think anybody else
I
struggled.
think
as
it's an
much as I
interesting
did.
concept to like be like, okay, I'm giving you a bunch of XP. You're learning that you suddenly have these
Oh, yeah,
powers.
it's like,
Make your own flashback of like, oh yeah, I could do this because I remember this time I did it.
yeah.
And in theory, it's cool, but we weren't. It was extra, so it's not like dropping it wasn't a big deal.
I think if we did that now, though, we would be better. Because I feel like, especially having a character that you don't know anything about, you just kind of walk into it. It makes you a better, like, at the creative side of it. Like, I think you're better at building a character and playing off of other characters. You're more a collaborative storyteller because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. So you just like have to play off of like the story you're around, and then you put yourself into it, and you have these little bitty hints everywhere, and then how people react to you. So I think that's like, I think especially if you're wanting to learn about a game and not have any preconceived notions about your character and put yourself in a box, this is a really good way to do it.
Yeah, I think this is really cool for like new players in that aspect. And there's no wrong way to play them. Like
Yeah.
you don't have your memory, so it's not like, oh, Alice
yeah.
wouldn't actually do that. Like that's fine.
Yeah.
Old Alice is gone.
Yeah.
So if you're playing it, it's
Yeah.
like, you know what? Actually, she's gonna take it this
Yeah.
way. There's nothing wrong with that.
And
And
that's
then you
super
roll
cool,
with it.
too.
And it's kind of cool finding
Yeah.
out that it's wrong too. Like you have a memory of like, oh shit, that's what I was
Yeah.
like. You could like not be okay with that. So it's interesting to like.
You have no emotional connection to who you're.
So like you have the pre-gen in the sense that like, yeah, you have your starting dots and stuff. That's not really negotiable, I guess. Although you can switch that around. But I think it would be doing a really big disservice, and it'd be a lot less interesting of a game if you weren't doing the Herald thing of people with a memory loss being woken up and compelled to do the Mithras stuff. If you all just made your own characters who lived in London and someone just gave you a mission to do this, that's just so
Yeah,
much
it's
less
compelling.
than
That's lame. You might as well
Yeah,
go
I don't
eat
think
a
it
pub.
works with non-pregens.
Yeah.
I, really, I mean,
not with this one.
maybe, I mean, even if you don't want to use these pregens, like if you want to make your own characters, it'd be better than letting the players
Yeah.
figure out and choose who they want to be
Yeah.
a little bit more.
I think you have.
Doesn't
I
it
think the
work so
memory
well?
wipe is such an interesting concept. This is my
So
favorite
important.
things about this,
Yeah.
honestly. And I mean, I guess you can make your own characters. It's gonna be a shit ton of work as a storyteller because there's a whole chapter of memoriams. So all those little tidbits, like I made some up and some like I took straight. That's the hardest part too as a storyteller too. I have to know all of them to know. Oh, this is kind of like that one memory you have. Because sometimes I'd miss it. Like I was like, oh, I should have a memoriam there because it's perfect. So I'm like, I gotta fit it in later because I wanted to get them all out by the time we got to the second to last chapter, and then you have your Metamorphosis where I just tell you your backstory if that's how you answered. But yeah, do pre-gens. Yeah. Otherwise, that's it. Any final thoughts? That's our step-by-step whole damn campaign we did.
Loved it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
My favorite game I've been a part of, honestly.
I really enjoyed it.
Pretty good.
All right.
Would play again.
So that's that. That's how we did it. If you do it differently, not as good, a little wrong, but try to do that.
Oh God.
If there's more questions, don't ask us. We talked about this enough. But yeah, otherwise great stuff. We have another video that's more of a spoiler-free what the book's like if you're just interested in maybe if this is for you, but you want to play in it. Otherwise, we're TableGoth, and we are finished with Fall of London. Bye.